Well, guys, it's the end of the semester. Hallelujah. This is Latasha Moore, and once again I will discuss the condom intervention carried out in southern India during the early 2000s and its relation to a public health concept. At the time the intervention took place, approximately 2.5 million people throughout the country of India had HIV. Cases were found in men who slept with men, intravenous drug users, female sex workers, and their male customers. The primary method of transmission was through the sex workers. An organization called Population Services International developed an intervention to combat the issue. The strategy took place in the 100 states where HIV was most prevalent and was carried out through games, plays, and discussions that all focused on improving communication about condom usage. Before executing the activities, surveys were conducted to find out the determinants in using condoms. The key determinant was found to be the men's beliefs about them. The games, plays, and discussions that were used as interventions subtly pushed the four themes that are here on the screen. Before we get into the technicalities, I want to discuss the PRECEED-PROCEED model in a relative and simple way. I believe this quote by Dr. Carl Sagan summarizes the model perfectly. His words apply to various aspects of life, even health. In order to know why an individual or a group is in a certain state, it is imperative to know their history. For example, in order to know why disparities exist between the health and wealth of European Americans and other groups, one must understand each group's history in coming to the United States. In order to understand why groups flee from one country to another, the political environment of the home country must be comprehended. Even on a personal level, want to know why you are like you are? Analyze your upbringing, what you did have, what you didn't. I could go on, but to come to a point, none of us act and think as we do for no reason. There is always something behind it. PRECEED-PROCEED takes this understanding and uses it to determine the best way to design an intervention so that it is effective and relevant. The PRECEED-PROCEED model was created by Lawrence W. Green in the 1970s, and he, along with Marshall Creeder, later developed it during the 1990s. It is considered the parent of all program models and is not a theory since it does not seek to predict outcomes. The entire model consists of 8 phases, but it is divided into 2 groups. Precede phases are 1. Social assessment, 2. Epidemiological, behavioral, and environmental assessment, 3. Educational and ecological assessment, and 4. Administrative and policy assessment and intervention alignment. Social assessment involves focusing on the ultimate desired result. What is the primary change the community and interventionists want to improve? What do they say their needs are? This is discovered by collecting primary data through avenues like surveys, focus groups, and interviews. Phase 2, which is a mouthful to say, involves determining which issue is the most pressing and needs to be the program focus. When this is decided, program goals and objectives are drafted. Emphasis on drafted because nothing is set in stone until phase 4. The educational and ecological assessment is done to identify which risk factors and determinants are connected to the health problem. Behavioral factors look at an individual's actions, while environmental factors look at individuals' social and physical surroundings. This phase also examines predisposing factors. These precede a behavior like knowledge and attitudes and beliefs. Reinforcing factors. These follow a behavior and provide rewards and incentives. Examples of them are social support and peer influence. And enabling factors. They come before behavior change and make it more or less likely for change to occur. Programs and resources are examples of these. The difference between the three factors is, in my opinion, simply the time in a person or community's life that the model examines or the factor examines. Predisposing factors look at the past. Reinforcing look at the present and why things are able to continue as they are. And enabling looks at the future for the possibility and likelihood of change. The last phase of the PRECEED portion is another mouthful: administrative and policy assessment and intervention alignment. I know my presentation question did not involve me giving recommendations or suggestions, but if I had the chance, I would highly recommend that someone who continues to develop this shorten the titles. I digress. This phase is connected to phase 2 in that it determines what realistically can and cannot be done due to barriers and policies. This is why phase 2 only involves drafting the goals and objectives. The look at reality involved in phase 4 determines which goals and objectives will actually be carried out. Now on to the 4 phases of PROCEED. Phase 5, implementation. Public health workers have done their research, determined the need, looked at what can realistically be done, and made a plan. Now it's time to carry it out. Following this phase are 3 forms of evaluation: process, impact, and outcome. Process evaluation can be carried out as the intervention is going along. It looks at if the objective and plans were actually accomplished and if they were accomplished as planned. Impact looks at the direct, immediate changes made to the community or people, while outcome focuses on the long-standing, sustainable changes that are made. I found that 5 of the 8 phases were implemented into the Indian condom usage intervention. Phase 2 was carried out through the program planner's research and discovery of alarming HIV statistics in specific groups it impacts most. They learned that it was being spread in 4 ways, but the most common way was through sex workers, so that became the program's primary focus. In phase 3, program planners learned that beliefs about condoms and self-efficacy to use them were predisposing factors. A reinforcing factor was the men's concerns about how their family and friends would feel about them using condoms. An enabling factor was that the choice to use a condom during sex is ultimately the man's to make. There may be little to no opposition from a sex worker, and even if there is, the man can still refuse and have sex without a condom. Page 114 extensively tells us how the implementation process was carried out. In phase 6, process evaluation, researchers discovered that they weren't accurately able to tell if they met their goal of reaching 40% of the target population due to not knowing the exact number in the highly mobile crowd and insufficient monitoring of the crowd. In terms of impact evaluation, the intervention resulted in an 18% increase in the consistent use of condoms. Phases 1, 4, and 8 were not implemented. In reference to phase 1, interventionists and community members did not speak with locals to get their thoughts on the most pressing issues. It simply appears that program planners saw the alarming rates of HIV, decided that that was most important, and started working on ways to decrease the rates. The article did not thoroughly discuss that administrative and policy assessment and intervention alignment was done, phase 4. In terms of resources, the organization that carried out the intervention, PSI, had the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but a detailed exploration of resources and potential barriers was not apparent. Finally, a look at the long-standing, sustainable effect the program had on the community was not mentioned. Well, that concludes my presentation. I hope that you all's finals go well and you have a great holiday break. Be blessed.